y'all, Mary Bulger here, naturalist with Iowa County Conservation, and I want to welcome you to our third virtual wild edible series. Today we are going to be white clover iced tea, and white clover is a plant that you can find growing just about everywhere. Roadsides and parks and even your very own yard. So it's also edible. All parts of the plants are edible, the flowers and stems and the leaves. And we're gonna use some of that today to make some refreshing iced tea. First thing I want to stress and emphasize is that you want to make 100% sure that the white clover that you are harvesting has not been exposed to chemicals like pesticides and herbicides or any other pollutants, because remember, you're going to be ingesting this into your body and you don't want to put those poisons in your body. So foraging it from your own yard, if you don't use chemicals like that, is probably the best place to get it, or forage those. And this is a really fun, family fun activity because everyone can get involved with foraging that white clover. So I'm just going to go over quickly what we're going to need for this. Not very many materials at all, probably all things you have at home already. And then the clover, of course. So we'll go over that and we'll go step by step what you need to do. It's a pretty simple thing. There are parts that take a little bit longer in the process, but I've kind of already made a few things. We'll really quickly. So I'm going to flip my camera around here so you can see what I have. So you of course need a kind of medium-sized saucepan because we're going to be boiling some water here to make that tea. You're going to need a sweetener for this one, and this is of course optional. You can use honey or maple syrup. I have honey here today. You're going to need 6 cups of water for this. You're going to need a cup of fresh and washed and rinsed clover blossoms. The recipe that I'm using today either calls for a cup of fresh or a half a cup of dried. Lemons are also an optional thing here today that kind of gives your tea a little bit of flavor. You're going to need, of course, a knife and a cutting board, and then I just have a bowl for my lemons and different things like that, glasses for your tea, and the like. So, and then ice also for your tea. So first thing I'm going to do here is start boiling my water. So I'm going to turn on my burner on high to get that going. And I'm putting 4 cups and then 2 more cups in here of water. And we're kind of going to get that boiling. While we are waiting for the water to boil, I'm just my lemons, okay? So the lemons are of course an optional thing here. What it will do, it'll give you a little bit of a different flavor. I tested this out earlier this week for some of my coworkers. I kind of made some and let them taste test and see what they liked. A lot of them liked it plain. Some of them really liked the lemon in it. That gives it kind of a unique flavor. And then some of them liked both lemon and honey. So I'm going to cut these 2 lemons up, and we're going to add a little bit of flavor to our tea with those. But lemons aren't for everyone, that lemony flavor. I like it myself. I think it's a nice kind of addition to, and it makes a summer drink when it's warm out pretty refreshing. So cutting those lemons up. One thing too that I wanted to let everyone who's watching know, I really like this Facebook Live platform because you can, if you have any questions while we're on live here, you can post those in the comments and they'll pop right up on my screen so I can answer those as we're going. So I'll always try to keep an eye on my screen to make sure that if you have any questions, I can answer those. So, got our lemons all cut up here. And our water is starting to heat up a little bit. It'll take just a little bit longer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white clover blossoms and then I'm going to put them, first thing and step in our process after the water is boiling is to steep these blossoms. And so that means that we're going to put the boiling water on top of them and all of the flavor from the blossoms are going to go into the liquid, into the water. So I'm going to put my blossoms in a glass container. I have a glass kind of saucepan right here, but you could use a big glass jar or even a big ceramic bowl, anything that would be safe to do or to steep your blossoms in. So we have ours ready to go here. One thing that I do have already, I did just kind of a small batch here of the tea. And I'm going to hold this up so you can kind of see it. It is in this clear glass jar here, and it has a little bit of a yellowish tint. It looks like a very light colored tea. And this one, it has a pretty light, subtle flavor for clover tea. If you're a person that really likes different kinds of teas, or you might use certain herbs or other plants to make your own tea, this one will be an interesting one for you. So this is one that I already made and let it steep for quite a while, a few hours. But for the recipe that we're using today, you can let your blossoms steep from anywhere from 30 minutes, they said at a minimum, to 4 or 5 hours. And the amount of time you let your clover blossoms sit in that water or let them steep, you'll have a stronger flavor, maybe a little bit of a different color, okay? So our water's heating up. It's almost ready at a boil. While we are waiting, I thought I would kind of talk a little bit about some clover facts or some fun things about clover. Some of you maybe really love clover. If you have some in your yard, you might notice that it attracts a lot of pollinators, especially different types of bees. So honeybees, bumblebees, little mason bees. Sometimes you have to get down there really close to take a look and see what kinds of pollinators are there. Maybe even some little butterflies. But the clover is a great plant to have in your yard. It gives your yard diversity, differences between the grasses. Maybe even you might have violets or dandelions or creeping Charlie. All of those plants that some consider weeds. And remember the last time I said, if you consider something a weed, maybe I don't consider something a weed. It's just kind of if it is in the wrong place, but it's a really beneficial plant to have for those pollinators. If you want to have pollinators in your yard, you need to have dandelions and violets and clover, among other nectar producing plants, okay? So really great thing to have in your yard. Almost ready for a boil. And so you may not have known that clover is edible. There are many different things you can eat or do with the clover, like we're doing today. A lot of people use it to make tea, use the blossoms to make tea, but the leaves are also the clover part, which I have some examples here. The leaves, you probably recognize this, right? If you have ever gone on a 4-leaf clover hunt, these are edible as well as the stems. And so some people might use the leaves to eat, to put on salad, the blossoms to make tea. Some people might even just eat these flowers raw. One thing that you want to caution too, if there's something out, a wild edible that you haven't had before, you want to be cautious. It might, your body might not be used to it. So kind of little steps here when you're sampling different wild edibles. All right, our water is boiling. So I am going to turn off my burner, and then I'm going to take my boiling water, I'm going to pour it over my blossom, and we're going to start our process of steeping the blossoms. Take my camera, turn it around so you can kind of see what this looks like. So in my glass saucepan here, I've just poured the boiling water over the clover blossoms, and you can see already how they've changed color. You can see that water is really hot, it's steaming, and right now those blossoms are starting to steep. And so they're kind of releasing. Oh, question here. What if the blossoms have some purple in them? Is that okay? And yes, it is. So the white clover will be mostly white, but they also have a little bit of purple. Let's see. I have an example of blossoms right here. See if I can bring this up to my camera. It's hard to see when I have my phone camera here, but if you can see, there's just a little bit of kind of purple or pink on those blossoms, and that is totally normal, and they're safe to eat. So thanks for the question. So our blossoms are steeping right now, and I'm gonna let this batch steep for a couple of hours because I wanna have a good flavor here with the clover tea that we're gonna make. But I'm gonna take the tea that I made a little bit earlier. I'm gonna grab my ice. I just left it in the fridge, so I'll be right back over. And I'm gonna put together a glass of clover tea. So it's about half full. You're welcome, Jennifer. And so I'm gonna take some ice. I've been letting this tea sit at room temperature for just a little bit. I'm gonna put some ice in there so it's nice and cold and refreshing on a hot summer day. And then I'm going to take some lemon, and I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of lemon in my tea. Put that in there. And I also like a little bit of honey. Another thing you can use is a little bit of maple syrup too. What I really love about this recipe is there's no processed sugar in this recipe. So you're using white clover, you're using lemons, and you're using honey that comes from honeybees, of course. So, all right. So, here's my tea that I'm gonna drink immediately. But as you're waiting for your blossoms to steep, anywhere from, like I said, 30 minutes to a few hours. Once they're done steeping at whatever level length of time you want it to do, what you'll need to do is take a mesh kind of sieve or colander. If you don't have one of those and you have one that has a little bit bigger holes in it, that's okay. Line your colander or your strainer with a paper towel just to catch all of those blossoms. Unless you want some in your tea for a little bit of decoration, that's fine too. You can eat those. But if you want to strain all of your blossoms out, you can use either a mesh colander that won't let those through, or a paper towel lined colander if you have a bigger one. Drain this water into a pitcher, add your ice, your lemon, and your honey, and enjoy your clover iced tea. Let's take a taste. That's good. And so the lemon and the honey, or whatever other sweetener you have, to kind of adjust to your specific taste. So one other thing that I wanted to kind of take a peek at here before I let you go today are the structure of the clovers and the flower. So clovers can kind of spread all over your yard. They can grow in big kind of bushy areas. If you don't mow them, they can get pretty tall. I picked these today from around Lake Iowa Park, and you can see they have really long stems. This is from an area that does not get trimmed in the woods. So they can have long green stems. Their flowers are usually white with that little bit of either pink or pink or purple in them. And then their leaves, of course, are those kind of rounded leaves, the clover leaf. And if you're probably pretty familiar with this, you might have been on 4-leaf clover hunts before. So that's kind of the structure of the white clover. So really great beneficial plant to have, and you can also forage and eat this plant. So thanks for watching today. This is kind of a little bit of a short one here. We appreciate your watching. Please share this. It'll be posted on our Facebook page right after this post. I'll also post the recipe in the comments, so if you're interested in this recipe, it will be there in the comments a little bit later. If you have any requests for future wild edible series, some edible that a wild plant you know is edible, but you're just not sure what to make with it, then you can put a comment in put a request in our comments. We're happy to take requests. One thing that I know is coming up really soon here, it's almost berry season here in Iowa. So in a few weeks, the mulberries will be in bloom, and then the raspberries, and then the blackberries. So we'll be for sure doing some things with those things sometime this summer. Some of my favorite things to forage and eat. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good weekend. Get outdoors, enjoy the nice weather and the sunshine. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.